Welcome back. On Capitol Hill yesterday, it was a tale of two hearings. Democrats, they were trying to get to what actually happened here in the accounts of the two witnesses. But on the other side of the aisle, the Republicans, they were spreading disinformation as well as also arguably distraction. Now, we spoke about this at the top of the program, and if you read the headlines, you'd think people were seeing two totally different things, even though there was only one hearing. Now, the mainstream media, for lack of a better term, was saying a brutal day for the president. Those stories described new and damaging revelations about the Ukraine scandal. On the other side, the right-wing media was calling the hearings a flop, saying the Democrats looked like clowns. Frankly, from my perspective at least, I'm not sure what they were watching, and that point of view, it was certainly reinforced by the president's favorite channel. I'm talking, of course, about Fox News.
I think Americans see right through this. It's kind of a web of lies, whatever you want to call it. And despite the Democrats' feeble attempt to spin this as some huge victory, it was really just a huge dud.
The Democrats really have no master plan for impeachment, whatever you may suspect. They clearly haven't thought it through. They're making it up as they go along, as most people in D.C. are.
Most of what we heard yesterday, we'd already heard before. Because there weren't any real cliffhangers.
It was all based on opinions. It was based on hearsay. There was no direct contact with the president over quid pro quo. It was all based on what witnesses heard from other people.
Now, whatever you think of that, millions of people every day watch that stuff. So we started wondering what, if anything, will get the hardcore Fox viewer to maybe change their minds about the president. Is there any development, bombshell, video, audio tape, whatever that's laid right in front that could get folks like that to come around to impeachment? Well, my next guest is probably the best guy to talk about this. He spoke and served, on the defense team for President Clinton during the impeachment battle. Guy Smith, he joins us now, and Andrew back with us as well. Okay. You had Fox during the Clinton impeachment, Lord knows, right?
We did.
But
didn't have Twitter.
No, you didn't. And that's where I was going. Was it always this polarized if you go back 20 years? Or are we seeing something different right now where people are so siloed, where they only consume certain news that certainly fits their maybe worldview here that you didn't even have during the Clinton impeachment trial?
That kind of polarization with the media has always been there, going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson. There were newspapers that hated him. They came up with the thing about him having a child with a slave, which turned out to actually have been true. But that's always been there. It's much more intense now. Social media makes it more intense. The country is more polarized, and we saw this play out in the first day of the hearings, where the Republicans would have made an NFL stretch coach be proud in terms of the distraction, because it's for them, it's probably a good strategy. They have nothing substantive to defend on, so they go with these distractions. You saw Laura Ingraham, and where it's evil. Well, the facts are not evil, and the facts came out in a very steady stream of facts, all damning to the president. And there was the new fact yesterday with the telephone call that now 2 State Department employees heard. And you got to wonder, it's amateur hour. You're talking to the President of the United States from Kiev on a cell phone in a public restaurant?
And obviously loud enough that 2 separate people could hear it. And Andrew, we laid off at the top. If you were watching in the morning, now you would think during the hearings, it's what's being said, basically in that congressional hearing room. But the banners that were, right over the shoulder of Ambassador Taylor, right? That basically he's a never Trumper. They took the talking points of the president and it was injected as news. I know he's right. I know that we have not, I'm not trying to be Pollyannish that, we always had Walter Cronkite as the only voice that people would listen to. But it does feel different.
It does, and it's not just the counter-programming that we're getting from Fox. It's that Fox and Breitbart and One America and even the White House is trying to dissuade people from watching the impeachment hearings. That feels new to me. That they're calling it boring and basically trying to give viewers or potential viewers any reason or rationale to not tune in whatsoever. To me, that's a little bit damning in that they are afraid that if the base hears what's going on or hears the truth, that they might start to lose some of that base. But I just, they're so insulated anyway that I can't imagine anything piercing through that bubble.
I don't think it's going to pierce through the bubble of the people that wear red hats and stand behind him at rallies. But what's already been happening over the last several months, if you look at the polling state by state and look at what's happening, it's the fringes of his base. Now, I don't mean fringe nut. I mean fringe people who voted for him, but it's like
didn't love him.
White women. That's right. White women, independents in suburbs. We saw this in the results of the Kentucky governor's election the other night.
Are they a tipping point? Do they lead to potential, friends and spouses who are Trump supporters who maybe start questioning again if they start hearing from somebody close to them?
Yes. I mean, think about it. There is a group of people who voted for Obama and then voted for Trump. They can go, and they're looking at this, and here's what's going to continue to play out. That was only day one yesterday. So we're going to have day two tomorrow with Ambassador Yovanovitch. She's going to be a very sympathetic witness because they beat her up, and she's a pro. And then next week we're going to have the colonel back in his uniform. And Sondland's going to be back. He's on the Republican list.
Well, yeah, I love that one, right? I mean, he's got the spine made up like a linguine. But to me, I always think, and maybe the number's wrong, but there's only 15% in this country anymore that haven't made up their mind about everything. And maybe I'm being generous even with that number.
That's probably right.
To that end, I've had former Watergate prosecutors that say, hey, this was even worse than what we dealt with and all the rest. Do they need what? You're now, instead of protecting this president, or President Clinton, you're not protecting this president. I'm sorry to do it to you, but I'm going to. What are you most afraid of? An audio tape? Are you most afraid of the senators start looking at the poll numbers in the North Carolinas and the rest, and Maines, and say,
if I was working for Trump, a tape with his voice. Remember Nixon, no taping system, transcripts of the tapes, altered transcripts of the tape, 18-minute gap. Court said you got to turn over the tapes, Nixon's voice. And the people didn't want impeachment at the beginning. Just yesterday was the beginning.
Yep.
And we're going to hear more and more. And now, think about just yesterday, suddenly now there's two more witnesses with directly heard the president's voice. It's not hearsay and that kind of stuff. And the word bribery, that's what was going on. And that's before you get to Giuliani. It's before you even get to Bolton. Bolton's going to testify. He wants to testify.
He doesn't.
Think about Pompeo. He wants to be senator in Kansas. People in his political people are saying, we got to fix this. Mulvaney and Bolton. Bolton is an American, very conservative, but a person of honor. You could tell that in what we've already, the drug deal thing, right? So he isn't going to want to go down in history of participating in the extortion of a...
And for folks who missed it, his attorney, Bolton's attorney, said, well, we have to get this cleared up as to whether or not my client can testify, but he has information that has not even come up yet in some of the prior hearings.
But that leads to a great question. Let's say Bolton does testify.
Right.
Can the White House significantly wall him off and make him a boogeyman the same way that they have other administration officials, so that none of their supporters listen to what he has to say, or if Mulvaney takes the stand or Pompeo? I mean, I don't even know if anybody close to Trump moves the needle inside the Trump bubble.
Not inside the Trump bubble, and will not. And it'll get to the Senate. There'll be a trial, and then he will probably be acquitted. But he will be damaged, as we were talking a few minutes ago, politically, fatally, probably politically damaged for re-election. But when there's a Senate trial, yesterday, in spite of some of the silliness from the Republicans, was a very solemn occasion. It was not a circus like some of the others, right? When there's a Senate trial, the senators actually have to take a separate oath to be a juror, to sit as a juror. They may not talk during the trial. It's 6 days a week.
So I got a question for both you guys. Assuming for this hypothetical that it's going to get to the Senate, which we all think it will. We all know the math. If every Democrat voted for impeachment, 20 Republicans would have to join to get to the magic 2/3. Does that vig, if you will, that 20, help or hurt the president in that the Susan Collinses of the world, the Colorado senator, the Tillis senator from North Carolina, they can basically vote against him.
That's right.
And have it both ways. But even if they don't get to the 20, it's not just the Democrats anymore. Now you've got a mix of Republican and Democrats saying what he did was a high crime and a misdemeanor and he doesn't deserve to be president. To me, in some ways, if I was the president, that big a gap gives too much cushion to too many lawmakers to vote their conscience or their political interests.
Well, think about this. And you asked me if I was defending Trump, what would I be scared of? Mitch McConnell. If the Collins and the Gardners and those guys change their votes, it means they might not get reelected, which means he won't be majority leader. He'll be minority leader. And, you know, there are two rules in politics. Get elected and let nothing get in the way of being reelected. Well, all of a sudden Trump's in the way and Pence is there, and Pence is a real conservative. They could throw him under the bus in a heartbeat.
I will gently say I doubt that'll happen.
I doubt it too.
If only because the
but I'd
Senate
be
trial
worried.
comes before primary season for these Senate races. And, you know, even Cory Gardner doesn't want Trump picking a conservative in Colorado and favoring
late
him in
by
the
then,
primary.
Andrew, to get somebody up and running and be able to primary somebody from the spring. We're making a historic vote.
That's why I said I
still
agree
means
with
that
you.
they would lose at some point, whether in the primary or the general.
I mean, I don't think there'll be a conviction, but I do think the process, contrasting to what happened with Clinton, where his approval rating continued to go up, because the American people had decided this was wrong. What he did was wrong, reprehensible, but not impeachable and unconstitutional. Now, where are we today? Extorting a foreign government to interfere in a U.S. election? That is a very different dynamic, and we've seen the movement in the polls before any of this stuff started public, and yesterday was just day one.
Yeah, and the more and more information that comes out becomes more and more damning. Guy, thank you, my friend, as always. I appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank you.
All right. When we come back, Andrew and I continue with the politics of impeachment. ABC News political director Rick Klein, he'll join us to take a look at what's next and also what the Senate could do next if the House impeaches the president.